got out of high school down here in 1976, and I had no intention of living on Martha's Vineyard. In 1980, got out of UMass Boston with a degree in biology, and ironically enough, I say to people, I moved back to Martha's Vineyard because it was an affordable place to live. And back then it was. You could buy a lot in Ocean Heights for $5,000, and you could build a house for $25,000. I started scalloping, promptly put my degree to work, hung it up in the bow of my boat, and me and my wife went scalloping for 3 years, and that was back when the economics of scalloping worked. You could literally build a house on a year or two of scallop money. So having a short mortgage, took that in hand, and started getting involved with the Shellfish Committee because that was my livelihood, and they decided when and where you would go fishing. And so quite frequently it would be me and the Shellfish Committee at the meeting, and they finally said, well, we ought to put Paul on there. He's got a degree in biology. And so by 1984 I got offered the position of a deputy warden. One of my proudest moments was when I went to the first Shellfish group meeting, and it was an annual meeting, and they elected me president. So after the meeting, I said, hey, Rick, what the heck is going on there? You know, I'm not that smart. So, but anyway, it was a 30-year tenure there, and a lot of changes. I think one of the proudest occurrences was to bringing aquaculture to the island. Not only training other towns, but and people like Scott. It was a rare opportunity in that we had money through the Shellfish Group to train fishermen in aquaculture and to buy a bunch of equipment, but there was no money in it for bricks and mortar, so to speak, if anybody's done federal grants.
I think oyster farming is, at least on the Vineyard, has come a long way. Before the program, through the hatchery, there was no one that was doing it. I think oysters now are kind of like the fad food, like cigars were.
The better for you?
It is primarily a restaurant item. The trouble that I see, and it's not really a trouble, financially, the price that we get paid for them has not risen a whole lot in 20 years, because there are a lot more oyster farms now than there ever were. The state hands out a lot of licenses every year. Every town has them, which, as far as water quality, is a good thing. As far as farming them, it's still a good thing, but there's a lot of people doing it. There are some people that are branching out with different things, scallops, cohogs, what have you. I could go on about that, but all of those species have their own problems, and oysters do too. Every site has their good and bad points. So, you know, I know a friend of mine on the Cape that's growing. He can throw his stuff on the bottom and walk away, go back in a year, harvest. We can't do that. We're in mud, we have predators, we have to grow them off the bottom in cages. It's very labor intensive. The water quality issue, I think, absolutely nitrogen is huge, but I think there are a lot of pieces to the pie.
There's no young people going into shell fishing. There's no young fishermen. Very, very few of them anyway. Whereas before, that was at times the backbone of the winter economy here on the island. I remember when I was in high school, guys would be down, we'd have a cold winter, and they'd be down on the Oak Bluffs Harbor with chainsaws cutting holes in the ice and using bull rakes, standing on the ice. You know, A, we haven't had the cold winters like that, and B, you don't have the fishermen.
Yeah, you could feasibly get more money if you made the effort to drive around and sell them to restaurants. That being said, now you've got 2 jobs, so you should get more money.
Because you gotta pay somebody for the second one.
I mean, the state cracked down on it regulation-wise, but in the early days, it wasn't so bad. And I did sell to restaurants direct. But I found that I had to come in off the water early, and then I'm driving around in traffic, fighting for parking place, and that's not why I got into growing oysters.
So along came an article in the paper that the land bank had just bought the land property, and with it came a building at the entrance to Eggertown Harbor. And ironically enough, it was controversial with the Eggertown Conservation Commission, who did not want the building torn down. The land bank was just interested in the beach. Obviously, it's a spectacular beach. So we were at the next land bank meeting saying we have a good use for that building. We were able to use the 12 fishermen from various island towns and the federal funding to gut the land property. It was a 2-bedroom. It's actually a kit housing, similar to the one you would get to Sears and Roebuck in the late 60s. And turn it into a shellfish nursery, and it's an integral part of the shellfish group now. It gives us a place to grow a lot more seed than just the Vineyard Haven hatchery, and that with the addition of the Oak Bluffs lobster hatchery, it's onward and upward, and then the need for seed will only increase. There's a lot of challenges to the marine environment, and so we've been able to meet some of them, and hopefully we'll be able to continue to meet.
So that put the kibosh on that.
Yeah.
The state helped too. They cracked down, rightly so. They, again, as in the early days, there was no issue. Today, I have to have ice. I got to keep a logbook. I have strict harvesting procedures. Depending on the time of year, but when I first started, I could throw them in the back of my truck and go.
Right.
And, it seems to me like we are getting warmer all the time. And, it creates issues.